Good afternoon. Just going to do another quick video about some other items in my collection. Now, the topic of this one is going to be headers, bells, display bells, and figure bins. Okay. So, so clearly, when Kenner finally started producing and shipping products to the retailers, the retailers had to know what they were getting. And so a lot of times the way retailers figure out what products a company has to offer would be Toy Fair. Toy Fair is probably one of the largest toy shows in the world, where retailers can go and look at sort of what the toy companies have to offer. And of course, for those shows, there's always literature that's produced that has, a picture catalog, sort of what might be available, so on and so forth. And so again, in Kenner, Kenner finally in 1978 was up and producing, and they also had to produce some material that showed what they were going to do. And so one of the ways, again, as I said, their Toy Fair catalog. So I know I don't have this book out, but I'm going to show you. So this is Kellerman's book, and one thing Kellerman's book, it shows us, is a page from the 1978 Toy Fair catalog, and what it does is it shows some displays that Kenner was going to release to the stores that they could use to display the figures that they were going to ship to them. And so that's kind of the first set of displays that were there. Now, the displays that I'm going to show you, or the bells that I'm going to show you today, are only the ones with figures on them. I'm not the ones that have Toy Galaxy and the other one, which I can probably just show you a picture of. Toy Center is the other one. I'm not going to show those, not only because I don't have them, but I like the figures. The figures are what what interests me. And so the first sort of bell that they sent out to hang in the stores was this one. Okay, so this would hang from the ceiling, of course, and it's got, the first 12 figures, which is interesting. So you know that this was released after they were already going to release the last 3 figures, which of course were the Jawa, the Death Star Commander, or Death Squad Commander is the old school name, and the Tusken Raider, or the Sand Person. Now, what's interesting about these photographs is you learn a lot about the photographs that they were going to basically reuse. The probably biggest thing that you notice is that the Darth Vader still has a mushroom-tipped double telescoping lightsaber. The interesting thing about this picture is that this was used for all of the Star Wars bells that had figures on them. Okay, same thing with the bin. The bin has a different colored cape, which is one of the, I guess, thought to be prototype colors. Both of their lightsabers appear to be double telescoping, which is interesting. And then, of course, the vinyl cape Jawa is with the vinyl cape, and it's of the darker variety. And so really no changes were made in these figure photographs that they used throughout the bells. But anyway, so this was the first bell that was used that had the figures on them. All right, so then you're going to think, well, what did the figures come in? And so we'll get that. All right, so this is the figure bin. Okay, so the figure bin had a header. This is what you're known as the figure bin header. This is the first header that came out for the figures themselves. Again, you've got the first 12. These actually didn't show the figures, but they showed the photographs from the film. Each of these bins came with a plastic tray, as you can see here, and this tray had 4 rows of 12. So there were 48 figures in those. And the way that these originally came was that the header was inside the figure bin, and it was shipped in a shipper box. Then subsequently, they would send figures just in a shipper box without a figure bin. I guess, I don't know if they assumed that they already had figure bins, or they were just going to hang them on the pegs like we would normally see. But anyways, this was the first figure bin that figures were displayed in. Now the shipper box is this thing right here. Okay, so this again, this had 48. What does it say? 48 figures each. 4 rows of 12. It has the long play circle on it, so this was early in the run. You can look up basically the assortment number, the 38160, and there are somewhere out there are lists of the assortment numbers and what figures came in with them. I didn't have a packing list with this one, so I don't know. But anyways, this is one of the original first shipping boxes of the figures. Okay, so as Star Wars went on and became more successful, in the year 78, they started developing the FET offer, and we've talked exhaustively about that, but I'm not going to go over that. But so the first sort of catalog sort of makeups, you've seen this. This is basically it's a pre-Toy Fair catalog, and this is also for products delivery of January, February of 79. But anyways, so this was the inside of the catalog that had to do with the FET. You see basically the Kit Bash FET. And then when you look over here and you look at the new headers or the new bells, the bells have the Boba Fett with the rocket firing action, but they used a 12-inch FET for this particular bell, as well as this what's called a long header, and that's over sort of the wire racks that would hold some of the figures that some of the stores would have. Well, this bell there's only pre-production ones. This was never produced because, of course, they changed it. The reason why they changed it is because they needed to take away the rocket firing feature. But this catalog, these were all produced in August of 78, and so they were, this was well before any of the controversy with the rocket firing mechanism back in late of 78. Now, the Toy Fair catalog that actually came out in 79, which is this here. This is the Kenner Toy Fair. You can see, again, this is the bell that was actually put out. This bell design does not have the rocket firing feature and just has the figure. In fact, it says, the laser rifle is removable. It can move its arms and legs. And so they clearly toned down the actual playability of this figure from the rocket firing mechanism that was on the promotional material that I just showed you. But this was the one that was actually put out at Toy Fair. Now, the interesting thing about this one, I always talk about this, is that the FET offer 3PO and R2 were hanging on the pegs here, but they never made it to the actual pegs. In fact, those were never produced. In fact, only chromalins exist of these, but these were just mock-ups that were used in the production Toy Fair catalog. So that was always an interesting. So the next bell that came out with the figures on them were, of course, the ones to promote the FET offer. Okay. And that is this one. Okay. All right. So the interesting thing about this one is that, of course, the figures that are over here, guess what? They look very recognizable because they're the same ones they used on the 12 action figure bell. You can see, except for the Jawa, which is now a cloth cape Jawa instead of the vinyl cape Jawa. But the double telescoping, mushroom-tipped Vader is still used. The pre-pro dark brown cape of Ben is still used. And then, of course, the double telescoping of Luke is still used. But anyway, so this was the next bell, and these were the ones that were hung for the figures in the stores. Now, the bin that went with that is what I'm going to show you next. All right, that's this one. Okay. All right, so this is the next figure bin that has what you can see the FET offer. The way it originally was that it did feature the rocket firing mechanism, but eventually this part of the header was covered up, and that is this one. Okay, now there are two versions of this one. There is the one with the cover up that says special offer, and then there's one with a cover up that says nothing. Now the one that says nothing is a little bit more valuable and a little bit more scarce to come by. The one that does not have the covering like this one is very, very, very uncommon. And Evan has one that's in beautiful condition. So anyway, so it was the same basic figure bin, just had a different header. In fact, these are all exchangeable, which is very nice. And I even have, this is another shout out to Matt Brookings. So I had these custom FET offer MOCs made up of 3PO, R2, and I even had one made of Boba Fett just for the fun of it. But anyways, so this figure bin and header went with that large FET offer bell. Okay, so now that they've got, now we have 21 figures that are out. One is just by mail only. The next iteration of this would be the 21 figures basically without an offer. Okay. And so the next bell in the series would be this bell. Okay, so now this bell is the Collect All 21. This is referring to all the figures that were available at the time. Boba Fett is now on here, but it's not an offer. So it's beyond that. This was right before Empire. You have the cloth cape Jawa again, but yet, once again, all the other figure pictures that were used back in '78 were used again on this one. And then, of course, you have the pictures of the next 9 figures. But anyway, so there, of course, was a figure bin that went with this one. Now, that is one I don't have, okay? That is one I'm currently searching for, and it basically says the same thing, Collect All 21, and it has circle photographs of all the figures that were available at that time. The basic figure bin is the same, but the header is different. I don't have the header. The interesting thing about this is that this is the most common bell that is out there. The header for the Collect All 21 is the most rare, beyond the uncovered FET one, is the most rare header that's available. So it's interesting that you have the most common bell and the least common header that goes with it. So, but anyways, so that, in terms of the Star Wars figure, not Empire, Star Wars figure era only, those are all the associated figure bells, as well as figure bins and their headers. Of course, I didn't show you the Collect All 21 bin header because I don't have it. Currently looking for it. I know where one's at, and I'm working at it. But anyways, so that's just kind of a rundown. It's kind of cool to see kind of how the figures came and what they held them in, and sort of what the advertisements in the stores look like. So, all right. Thanks again. We'll see you later. All right. Take care.